Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to cover how and why there's a need for React. Most of you know we use ReactJs. It solves a big problem, and I want to focus on that problem, how it solves that problem, and what is that problem to begin with? Why do we even need ReactJs? So let's go look at a simple HTML page. Let me go ahead and there we go. So this is a simple application that I created just to illustrate the need for React.js. So on my right side is the application. What it's doing is displaying the top players on a website. If I were to refresh this and click this button, this is where the order of the players changes, right? So imagine they're playing a video game, and their scores are updating, and these players are going up and down the ranks. Let's take a look at the HTML. It's pretty simple HTML. You've got your typical body tag. You have your H1 tag. Then this is where the shuffling is going to happen, right? So you have the ordered list. That's why you're seeing the 1, 2, 3, 4 basic HTML stuff. And then you've got the name of the players right here, right? So you've got LI. Then you've got a button to refresh. You also have an on-click function on this. And what this function does, it just refreshes the list. So let's go ahead and take a look at what that refresh looks like. So this is the function that is going to go and refresh the list. The first thing it's going to do is going to go and shuffle the players. It's going to reorder this array of players. So if you go take a look at this, I'm not going to focus too much on it, but this is the list of players. And all it's doing, it's running through a function and randomly shuffling the order of the array and returning the new order. Once I get the new order, I'm getting the element by ID, so the player list. So this tag is marked as the ID. Order list has been marked as player list. So I have the player list now. What I'm going to be doing is one by one removing these items here. In fact, let's go ahead and do this. Let's go and remove the second step so that we know what's going on in the first one as a result. So I'm going to comment out the last piece, refresh. So what it's doing is, oh, I got to refresh this. There we go. So with this, all the items have been removed. Now, when I enter and execute the second piece of logic here, maybe refresh the page. So you see now the random order happens, right? So all this piece of code is doing is adding back the append a child back into from the element, the randomly generated array here. So if you take a look at this, this is where as a developer you have to maintain, you have to really understand and manipulate the DOM or the HTML. So each HTML, once it gets loaded into a browser, it is represented in memory as a content tree. And it looks something like this, right? So if I were to zoom in a little bit more, like you can see here, so on my left side is the HTML, and this is the DOM tree. So my JavaScript, the on-click function, needs to go find this set of list or this ordered list, and then remove these items, right? And then re-add those items in. So there's that manipulation that is happening. So this is kind of the ugly part of the manipulation. It may not seem like a big problem in this example, but if you've got an application like Facebook or Google or Amazon, you can imagine how challenging it would be to go ahead and keep manipulating this DOM structure that the browser really understands. So let's recreate this application back into a React application, right? So let me go up here. Let me create a folder here. So make directory React.js. I'm going to do npx create React app. Oops, sorry. I need to go into React.js folder, npx create React app. So it's going into that folder. The npx create React app goes in and creates the skeleton of the application. So it's installing all the dependencies. It takes a few seconds for it to work. While it's loading, by the way, this function is pretty cool if you want to understand it. It's called shuffle players. It's really randomized. I got this from the Stack Overflow. Pretty neat way of randomizing an array. So you might want to use this in the future as well. I'll link this URL in my description of the video. All right, so it's still loading. All right, React got installed finally. Let's go take a look at the source of this. So if I go into this npm run, let's actually take a look at what's in the package. So it's the start script. So let's do npm run start. All right, so it's starting now. Okay, so let's go to the browser. Let's go and hit the React application. All right, so finally it got loaded. You have this application. So let's go take a look at the index. The main code in React from the skeleton is in the app file. So let's go take a look at this app file. This is the standard here. What I'm going to do, I'm going to have my application run in it. So let me go to my top players HTML file. Let me grab this, copy this, go to index, the app.js, and let's go ahead and remove all of this, paste this here. So let's see what it's doing. It's compiling. It failed. It does not like the style, obviously. Let's remove the style. We don't need it. All right. All right, we've got some version of that going on. If I remove this class name app, I will remove the CSS that is causing this. Refresh. All right, there we go. So we've got pretty much what we had before, right? Obviously, what's not going to work is the refresh list because this function is not hooked up. So in order to do that, let's import a few functions that we had before to represent how we can go about doing this in React. So the first thing that we want is this function, right? So let's change it into React way of doing things. So it's going to call refresh list. Okay, that function does not exist. So let's create that function. Let's copy it from, okay, I'm going to copy this refreshed list. I'm also going to copy the shuffle players. Right, so these two functions are here. So far it's not going to do much. Okay, all right, so if I refresh this, it's working now, right? So the same kind of logic is still working. So far we've got the same thing, but we don't want to remove this kind of like this ugly code here. So let's take a look at, take this players here. So in React, what you have is a concept of state. So let's do import use state from React. All right, so now what I can do is, and we'll get into the use state in a different video, but what I want to show is how we can remove this, I call it ugly piece of code. So let me go ahead and create the use state function here. So it's going to have players, set players. All right, I'm going to set that up. So these are my initial list of the players. It's going to have the use state here. And what I'm going to do is, instead of hard coding in my items here, I'm going to go do a map exercise here, right? So I'm going to do players.map, and this is what it's going to do. All right, so you've got the map working. So, okay, we're using the state now. What we need to do now is to be able to update the state that we have here, right? So it's using the state here. It's actually refresh, it still works, right? But what we want to do, the on refresh state list, what we want to do is we just want to create a new function here, constant refresh list 2. It's a function. And within this, what I want to do is randomize it. So I'm going to call that function, which is up here, shuffle players. So all I have to do now is if I just do variable shuffle players, and then, so let's call it something else. And I'm going to just do set players, new player list. And let's change this function to, okay, it's compiling. There we go. So now you can see that this is refreshing as we are. Just to double check, we're going to have that alert. There we go. Okay, there we go. So all of that is working. And now you'll see in this piece of code, we are not doing any DOM manipulation here. So the way what DOM does, ReactJs does, if I were to remove all this, don't need any of this. Okay. So what ReactJs does is it takes that DOM manipulation away from you, right? So it has a state. So as soon as it finds that a state has changed, it will on itself generate on its side a new version of the DOM and realize, oh, wait a second, the list has changed. And what it would do is it has its own logic to go ahead and remove the list or update the text in the list. So it actually does it in a much more efficient way. So if you remember the way how I did it was actually inefficient. I would never do that. The way how I would do it is go through the first item and maybe just update the text of that list item instead of removing it and then inserting it. So that's what React.js is doing too. It's applying just the delta text to the list. And if there's a need to add more list item, it will also do that. So let's imagine that you started with something much smaller. So I'm going to remove one of the items. There we go. So you've got 3 items, but when I do refresh, it's added one more as well. So it's doing that DOM comparison. Always in memory, it's always comparing and seeing what is the delta, what is the difference, and it applies the changes for you based on the new state. So this is the beauty of React.js. This is very scalable, and it takes away that whole DOM manipulation from the developer. So back again here, you're just focusing on, based on my state that is there of this application, the DOM is going to look like this. If the state changes, please React to go ahead and update the DOM for me. So I hope this was enjoyable. You understood the problem and you know now how React.js solves it. Till next time, thank you for visiting.